It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Oh, yes. We are live. We are in Waco, Texas, 21st floor of the Alico building. It is the Pete Sousa Show presented by Slovacics of West. If you ever go through, well, if you're traveling from Dallas to Austin, Austin to Dallas, or anywhere, and you're on I-35, you've got to stop at Slovacics. It's a place you can put your arms around, and kolaches that you've got to have. We'll talk a lot more about Slovacics over the course of the Pete Sousa Show, but to start things off this morning, we got to talk about college football, Florida State football. Now, I grew up in an era where Florida State and Chief Osceola were terrifying. They were feared. Even last year, when Florida State went undefeated during the regular season, was left out of the college football 14 playoff, they weren't terrifying. They certainly have not been terrifying so far this season. 0-2 over the first 5 years of Mike Norvell's tenure at Florida State. They have began 0-2 3 times, which is really hard to imagine. Now, you look back over the course of Florida State history, I like doing stuff like this. Bobby Bowden, head coach from 76 to 2009. After Bobby Bowden, head coach in waiting was Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher, obviously, his reputation spoke for itself at Florida State, had a couple down years towards the end, got a better job, actually. It depends on who you ask, I guess, at Texas A&M. Now, after Jimbo Fisher, Willie Taggart comes in from 2018 to 2020. I mentioned Bobby Bowden. That is the creme de la creme of football, college football. I mentioned Jimbo Fisher. He took over where Bobby Bowden left off and did a phenomenal job, you could say. I mean, Jameis Winston winning a Heisman Trophy, and they win a national championship. And then things start to go sideways when you bring in new blood. You brought in the hot coach. Willie Taggart was doing very well at Oregon, but he starts at Florida State, and there's a little bit of a disconnect. So now you're into the Mike Norvell era, and Florida State is at a critical time in its program's history when you take a look at the thread of Bobby Bowden, Jimbo Fisher. It kind of breaks with Willie Taggart. Don't forget Burt Reynolds passed away, former Florida State quarterback. I love Burt Reynolds, and I always felt like when Burt Reynolds died off in 2018, a part of the Seminoles died off with him. And I might not be wrong. When you look at where the program is now, if you're a prisoner of the moment, you say, okay, we're 0-2. We're in a conference now where we're not sure where we're going, forwards or backwards. We did have the opportunity to go to the college football playoff last year. We just missed. Now there's an expanded 12-team playoff. There is an opportunity for Florida State to maybe run the table and get into that playoff, but it's not very good. In fact, it's minimal. And the problem now you're faced with is, can you keep your team engaged if you're Mike Norvell? Can you continue to get some of your best players who you paid a lot of money, NIL money, and guys you paid to come in? Can you get them to stick with the program? There's a lot more to be seen from this Florida State program throughout the course of this season, but losing to Boston College. I mean, Florida State was a program when in 2000, right? That this was a team and a program that was so good. You could compare them to Miami, where every so often you'd have, Gino Torretta for the Miami Hurricanes. He has won the Heisman Trophy. Did Gino Torretta really win the Heisman Trophy? No. Basically give that trophy to the team. In 2000, Chris Wenke for Florida State. He wins the Heisman Trophy. Really? You can give that to the team. There's no more of that that's going to happen with Florida State, at least in the immediate future. I did, however, when you look at the handling of last night's loss, a crushing defeat at home to Boston College, Mike Norvell stood in front of the media and he said, hey, this is on me. I've got to make some changes. He was accountable. One guy who wasn't accountable the other night after LSU suffered a similar crushing defeat to USC, Brian Kelly. I don't want to talk about Brian Kelly because I don't know that I'll be comfortable talking about him because there's other stuff that I do. But I don't know if I buy into Brian Kelly. That is all I will say. I thought about it. I was recruited to play college football. I wasn't very good, but I was recruited. I ended up not playing at all. It's a story for another day. But I often think, like, what if a guy like, um, what if I was recruited by a guy like that? Would I be able to buy in? I don't know that I would be able to buy in, but clearly a lot of people have bought into Brian Kelly's message. He's a very wealthy coach. Um, but yeah, I'm just not sure about that one. You can tell I'm uncomfortable talking about it. All right, something I am comfortable talking about: the Baylor Bears. We're going to stick with college football. I told you a week ago that this team was much improved. Now, does a 45-3 victory over a team like Tarleton really show how improved you are? I personally think it does. I was doing research for this morning, and this is on me. I was scrolling back in time. I'm sure it's somewhere in the Baylor game notes, but I wanted to see the last time Baylor held an opponent to 3 points or less. I literally, something else came up. I was scrolling so slowly and doing a bunch of different things, but it's been that long. Uh, and that lends its fact or lends itself, that number, to the point that Dave Aranda, back on the Baylor defense and coaching day to day, play to play, game to game, is something that I think will be so significant for the future of this Baylor program. Before the game, you get a chance. I called the game for ESPN. You get a chance to talk to the coaches the day before, and it's really sort of an intimate gathering. You really, there's a little bit of truth serum sometimes, depending on the coach, and I get that. Certain coaches don't want to reveal anything. Some coaches are totally transparent, and then you get Dave Aranda, who is who he is wherever he goes, which is the most beautiful thing about a coach like that, besides the fact that he's a defensive wizard. Anyways, he compared his journey back to calling the defensive plays for Baylor to John Wick. And if you've seen the movie John Wick, which, by the way, I'm not like a big John Wick guy, but if you've seen the movie, at some point in the original, his dog gets killed. He's got to go back to his old way of life and get back to business. And that includes jackhammering into the floor to get back to some of his artillery and weaponry that he uses to be John Wick and just to own stuff, right? I mean, we've seen Keanu Reeves as John Wick, just a bad dude. But Dave Aranda talked about he had to go back and find that bad dude himself, right? Going back and calling plays, calling the defense every single play, coaching the linebackers is similar to John Wick, digging underground, getting the weaponry that he knows that he has at his disposal to become the absolute best assassin and hitman he can be. Dave Aranda feels like he had to do the same thing, and so far so good. Again, we'll know a lot more after this Utah game is over. I saw early, I think Baylor is a 2-score underdog, 13-point underdog. I think people will be surprised to see how well Baylor plays in that game. One of the things that I was not in love with was when you look at Daquan Finn, Baylor's starting quarterback, the transfer coming in from Toledo, really one of the most highly coveted transfer quarterbacks in the portal last year, ends up going to Baylor. Early on in the game, we saw his ability to make plays, right? A 39-yard touchdown on their first drive. That came on the heels of an absolute dart completion to Josh Cameron. Unfortunately, if you're really holding a microscope to the performance of Daquan Finn, like I'm sure the Baylor coaching staff is, and Utah coaches and coaches all around the Big 12 and whoever's going to play Baylor, there was an issue with some of the accuracy. Now, a lot of times, and I am not the football expert. I called the game with Brad Hopkins, who is a football expert, former All-Pro, played like, I don't know, almost 200 games for the Titans. It was brought to my attention through him that there was an issue with some of Finn's accuracy, that guys were running free that could have caught touchdowns, in stride for 20, 30, 40, 50 yards, and they were getting tangled up, turning around, having to contort their body to even try to catch the ball, let alone be able to catch the ball and keep moving. You also saw some risky errant throws from Daquan Finn, some in the red zone. He threw an interception down in the end zone at one point, and that was discouraging, and you hope to work those kinks out. You also sit back and as an optimist for the Baylor program, you say, okay, I saw an offense that certainly can move the football. There are clearly kinks that need to be worked out. When you talk about their offensive coordinator and Jake Spavital, this is a an air raid offense that they can move the football through running. A lot of times when you hear air raid, you hear, okay, obviously, right? Unless you're a moron, air raid, right? You're going to think we're going to the air, we're throwing the football. That's not the only way to move the ball with the air raid offense, and running the football is a great way to do it. I think there was a lot of excitement around the play action and the RPOs that they ran with DeQuan Finn and Richard Reese and even Dawson Prendergrass. You're going to get Dominic Richardson back at some point, but he wasn't 100%. There's a lot to be. There's still some more questions to be answered for the Baylor running backs in that position, but I think they're good enough when you have like a thunder and lightning combination, like Prendergrass, the big runner, and like Richard Reese, a guy who can make you miss on the outside, a guy who can work in space and work very well and make guys, basically search for their jock straps after he runs by them. And you have DeQuan Finn, who is clearly a maestro with the football in the running game, whether it's pulling a ball out of a guy's belly, right, during that RPO and keeping it. That's what he did on that first touchdown. The play action is so huge. The actual fake is such a big deal to having success in the RPO. And, man, he did a great job of that. And he's so fast. He's clocked at 22 miles per hour. Running in the open field. That's not one of the fastest guys on Baylor's team. That's one of the fastest guys in the country. So there's a lot more to be revealed as far as this Baylor team is concerned, but a lot of excitement. If I were a Baylor fan, I would say, okay, could we be headed into a situation and a season where our defense is going to win us some games? Might be hard to comprehend because they gave up 33 points a game last year playing in the Big 12. That was the most in the conference, but so far against Tarleton, you give up just 3 points. Again, the real test comes tomorrow against Utah or Saturday against Utah, but they held Utah to 20 points last year. That was a Utah team that did not have Cam Rising, but it's still a situation where there's a lot to be excited about if you're a Baylor fan. Are you going to go to the 12-team college football playoff? Probably not. But could you go to a bowl game? I really believe you could, and you have the opportunity now. When you talk about getting on a bit of a roll, you're at 1-0. I think if there's one game you look at the early portion of the schedule that you're probably going to lose, it's going to be on the road at Utah. You come back home to play Air Force. You win that game. You're 2-1. And then, oh, by the way, I think you can go to Colorado and beat them. Why not? And all of a sudden you're 3-1 and you have momentum. And for a team like this, when you have a situation where a team has a 3-9 year like Baylor did, and you all fall flat on your face. And they didn't necessarily gut the program. There's a lot of really good players that have come back for this Baylor team. A lot of really good new players. One guy I haven't mentioned on defense is Keaton Thomas, who was absolutely phenomenal last game. Really made an impression on the program and on the fan base early in the game with a pick six for a touchdown. He had a sack. He seemed like he was everywhere on the field. You also talk about newcomers. I mentioned Finn. He had a touchdown. Michael Trigg, the new tight end, more of a wide receiver and a matchup nightmare. He had a score. These are three guys who are three transfers who scored the first three touchdowns for Baylor, but they return a lot of guys like Matt Jones, Richard Reese, Garmin Randolphs, guys like Trevor Maai in the trenches. And the reason I mentioned the returnees is because when you have a team, like I mentioned, that goes 3-9, as far as I've experienced and I'm told from guys who are so close to the game, it's kind of like coming off a shipwreck if you can make it back the next year and be playing together. Now, what do people in a shipwreck have in common? Well, they've been through hell together. The bond is strengthened. Now you're in a situation where, okay, as I mentioned and as I predicted, you get to 3-1 maybe, and all of a sudden this bond that you've created continues to strengthen, and then the ball starts to bounce your way. All of a sudden you're winning those 1-point games that you lost last year and that you had the here we go attitude around over the past 2 years, right? I think it was pretty cool to see Baylor win going away, and I think it was a huge sigh of relief for all the players. And now that the sigh is gone, okay, we took care of business in week one as opposed to losing like they did at home to Texas State last year. The sigh is gone, and maybe the sky could be the limit. Certainly a bowl game is within reach. Moving to the Cowboys now before we get to Cam Stewart in our next segment. Cam, by the way, you got to watch the Cam Show on the Rogue Media Network. The guy's berserk, and he's compelling. There's a lot of stuff that when I sat in for Cam's first show, there are things that he says that really make you, wow, did he just say that? That's a good point. But then I also tell Cam he doesn't give anyone the benefit of the doubt. We'll talk about that when we have Cam on here in a little bit. More football, more as it relates to Texas football and Texas pro football. The Dallas Cowboys are set to start their season on Sunday. They're actually underdogs in Cleveland, 3.5-point underdogs. A couple things jump out at you right there. One, that's right, this is a Browns team that lost in the first round of the playoffs last year. Ed Stefanski, who is their head coach now, by the way, he's the longest tenured coach. It's hard to believe, but not hard to believe, in Browns history since they came back in 2000. So imagine that, right? You've got 24 years of Cleveland Browns football. A lot of it has really sucked, obviously. But here is Stefanski, who comes back with the general manager. That's an indication that, okay, something's going right there. They've made the playoffs 2 of Stefanski's 4 years. They come into this game against the Cowboys, like I mentioned, 3.5-point underdogs. Deshaun Watson, somebody who could have – it's really kind of make or break time for him. When you look at Deshaun Watson, he has an opportunity against the Cowboys on Sunday. The Cowboys no longer have Stephon Gilmore. They've lost a lot of pieces on defense, and I feel like that 3.5-point spread is very telling about what the Cowboys lost, because if you look at Dallas on paper, the fact is they've won as many games over the past 2 seasons in the regular season as the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a very good football team over the past 2 seasons leading into this year, but they've lost a bunch of pieces. Not having Tony Pollard, I think you'll feel that. You're in a situation where I think we're going to find out just how good Dak Prescott is. And when I say how good, is he someone that can carry a team, right, to victories? So you want to be an elite quarterback. That's what you have to do. You have to lose pieces who have helped you win previously, and you have to be able to win without them. You still got a guy like CeeDee Lamb who, as all reports indicate, it will be all systems go coming up for next year or for week 1 of the NFL season, that game at Cleveland. But I just think like we're getting back to, reality with football. And the reality starts, sometimes it's hard to believe, but in Vegas with these over-under totals and the point spreads, they're very revealing. And Dallas being a 3.5-point underdog in Cleveland, probably just about right. And it's probably something to really keep an eye on. I like the Cowboys in that game. Really, I think the Cowboys are just a better team, and I think Joe Flacco was tremendous last year in Cleveland. I think we're going to learn a little bit about that going forward, about just how good he was. I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Flacco ends up starting in Indianapolis. But that's a story for another day. Cam Stewart coming up. Also, Keyon Cobb. You got to meet my man, Keyon Cobb. You're going to love him. He gets us into some NFL picks. We'll do Keyon first, and then we'll do Cam after that.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Cobb joining us, former Charlotte football player, former Wofford football player. You are in downtown Charlotte, North Carolina. Clearly, you've got your Carolina Panthers scarf on this year. It's a lot of optimism, man. You got an uphill battle with the Panthers.
Yeah, we definitely do. First, Pete, thank you so much for having me on, man. This is an absolute blessing to be able to jump on your show, be able to talk to somebody who actively does some broadcasting for ESPN. And you called a great game versus Baylor, just so you know. That was great to see a flexion of your voice and everything. But yeah, I mean, the Carolina Panthers, it can't get much lower than we were, right? We were 2-15 last season. We got a new head coach. There's a lot of optimism going around. Vibes are high in Charlotte. We can say that for sure.
I want to go into your ACC country roots as a college football player. Last night and this morning, a lot of people talking about Boston College and Florida State. 0-2 again for Mike Norvell. I mean, last year obviously was a terrific year, regardless of how it ended. What are your thoughts on that program as it stands right now and where it's headed?
Yeah, the person that I feel for right now is DJ Uyunglele. I mean, he's getting rocked on social media, and that kind of stuff definitely hurts the confidence. And confidence as a quarterback is key. You have to come out there and know what you're doing, be confident in the throws you're making and what you're seeing. And there's a lack of confidence either in Mike Norvell with DJ or DJ in himself. But you don't want to see that kind of stuff on the field. Going 50% completion rating yesterday it is unacceptable from DJ. And if you think about Mike Norvell, if he's 50% on wins, his job is getting called for. So he has to hold that same sort of accountability for the players on his team. And that, starts with DJ Uyunglele. You hate to see an 0-2 start in the ACC, but Florida State is it's cutthroat. It's a cutthroat place. And if I'm a fan of Florida State, I'm not burning the city down yet, but I'm checking to make sure I still have my pitchfork in the closet, just for future reference to be sure that we're all good. But you hate to see it for the Florida State fans.
Well, I like your background and your ability to kind of access your career and your roots there in ACC country, but I also like following you on social media. This is one of the main reasons I want to have you on. You combine that athletic experience with the ability to pick games. You could pick passes as a safety in college, and you can pick games. You've been winning people some money, and I like the way that you deliver your picks, and of course, what really matters is the results. So I'm curious to see when you look forward. I want a couple futures from you that people can take to the bank this year. I mean, we're wide open. The season starts Thursday night. What do you like that you feel as though people need to run to pull a hamstring, run into the betting window? What do you think?
You say taking it to the bank. I would start in Bank of America Stadium here in Charlotte. I think Deontay Johnson over 750 yards it's minus odds, minus 155 right now. But Deontay Johnson has had 750 yards in every single season of his 5-year career, except for last year, where he missed 5 games due to injury. He had a revolving door at quarterback. Offensive coordinator got fired, and still he was only 30 yards away from that 750-yard mark. He's moving here into Carolina with the number 1 overall pick, Bryce Young, who was able to get his guys the ball. Last year, Adam Thielen was a wide receiver 1, and we kind of revived his career, having over 1,000 yards last season, and honestly the most static and predictable offense in the entire league last year. Now we're moving on. We've got Dave Canales coming in, and Dave has confidently said Deontay Johnson is his number 1 guy. If you leave Deontay Johnson one-on-one on the backside, you can best believe the ball is coming to Deontay Johnson. And in Dave's offense last season, 2 guys had 1,000 yards of receiving, Mike Evans as well as Chris Godwin. So I think that we're able to have Deontay Johnson with 1,000 yards, 750 yards for sure.
I like that. We start at Bank of America Stadium. Where do we go next?
Yeah, we stay in the NFC South. Mike Evans to have 1,000 yards. This is also minus odds, but this one speaks for itself, Pete. Mike Evans has had 1,000 yards in every single season over his decade-long career. The offense is going to look pretty similar with Baker Mayfield throwing the ball. Yes, they lose Dave Canales, but it doesn't really matter for Mike Evans. He's done it year after year, every single year that he's been in the NFL, and I think that he's going to be able to surpass that once again. And if he doesn't, you throw your hands up because you're in the minority. He does it every year.
All right, what do we got third?
This is for people. I like this one because this one's for people
Anytime
who like.
you give your hands like that, I got to believe it's something good.
Yeah. One more for the people who like a spicy one. One, that could pay the rent for the entire year. This one's got big time plus odds. Kyler Murray to win the MVP. And I think recency bias has robbed us of how good Kyler Murray truly is and how good Kyler Murray has been in this league. Let's not forget, Kyler Murray did win the Heisman Trophy. He was the number one overall pick. He also got drafted to the MLB, which is wild, top 10 pick there. But in 2021, Kyler Murray led the Cardinals to a 7-0 start, putting him on top of the MVP conversation before injuries riddled him and DeAndre Hopkins that year. Things kind of fell apart. They lose in the playoffs. But the question mark is, will the Arizona Cardinals win enough football games this year for Kyler Murray to be considered in the MVP race? And I think so. I mean, I think that this is a team that's going to win some games. And Marvin Harrison Jr. coming on as a top 5 pick who, could be a young D-Hop for Kyler Murray. If the Cardinals make the playoffs, Kyler Murray is going to have to play MVP caliber football. And I believe that he can.
All right, so what do you got for odds on that?
The odds on that one are plus big time. So for him to win the Offensive Player of the Year is plus 15,000. So I imagine that him to win the MVP is going to be plus 30,000 or more.
Wow. Okay. So that I do like that long shot. I might join you on that one. I like that.
It's just something to sprinkle on top. If you just to have a little bit of fun for the season, I see nothing wrong with it. I would take that one to the bank, but I would make a little bit of a deposit there.
I like that. Cowboys country, though. That's where I am. What do you have as far as the Cowboys and their over-under is concerned? Something jumped off the page at me is, and I guess it does make sense, but they're a 3.5-point underdog on the road against Cleveland to start the season. How do you like them overall the entire season? Mike McCarthy talks about, I got a 21-game plan. That, of course, includes the playoffs and the Super Bowl. As far as the regular season over-under is concerned, what do you have there?
So their line's at 9.5, Pete. And I think that they could clear that. Last year, they won 12 games. Yes, they had one of the easier schedules last season, but this year they're in the middle of the road. And all of their tough games are them playing at home this year. They have multiple home games versus the Texans, versus the Bengals. Some of these tough games that, they might lose on the road, I could see them winning at home. They were 8-0 with a home record last year in 2023, and they've only lost one home game in the last 2 years. This is still a good team, strong defense. You can always bet on Micah Parsons. I think there's a little bit of pressure on Dak Prescott, but I do believe that this is a team that's going to win more than nine games this year.
All right, give me the key, Kevon, for Thursday night. By the way, I like your Cowboys. Obviously, they've lost some pieces this year, but they have won 12 games the past 2 years. Nobody else but the Chiefs has won as many games over that time. And we're talking regular season now. When it comes down to this bet, we're not talking about the playoffs. So I agree with you there. I think that they will clear that 9-5 hurdle, like you said. All right, who do you like Thursday night?
Thursday night. That's
starting the season off. Come on, give us a winner.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. This is an exciting year, I believe, that is coming up. There's so many different storylines going into the 2024 season, and there's no better way to kick off an exciting football season than with a little bit of revenge. And you know what they say about revenge? It is best served in prime time on Thursday night and your name just so happens to be Lamar Jackson. I think that we can count on Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh, who is 12-4 in his career in opening games, as well as not losing a single primetime game over the last 2 seasons, has John Harbaugh. I could see the Baltimore Ravens waltzing on into Kansas City and getting a little bit of revenge and getting this season started off the right way.
So what's the number there?
The number in terms of
what's the spread? We gotta look.
the spread. The spread on that one is 3.5.
3.5.
Favoring the Chiefs. Yep.
So we like the Ravens, like you said, to waltz into Kansas City and to walk away with a little bit of revenge. And obviously they would. So you're telling me, by the way, that Baltimore money line is a good bet.
I think Baltimore money line is a great bet. And if you want to play it a little safer, Kansas, you can see the Kansas City Chiefs, it's tied up. Patrick Mahomes does what Patrick Mahomes does, drives it down, field goal to win the game. Buy that half point and, take the Ravens plus 3.5. But I do think that Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh, and this defense in Baltimore is going to come into Kansas City and take that money line to the bank.
I'm throwing this one out to you here just to see if you have one. If you don't, no big deal. But any college football game you like headed into the weekend that you've seen already that you're getting ready to share with people?
Yeah. So in Charlotte, in Charlotte here, Tennessee is taking on NC State. And I watched, I'm not sure if you got to see it, but the Nico quarterback in Tennessee looks like he's going to be the real deal. And, I could see Tennessee walking in here and taking the dub as well.
All right. So we like Tennessee over NC State.
We do like Tennessee over NC State. And I could see it. I know NC State is, technically going to be the home team, but I think Tennessee fans are going to show out to Bank of America. And I could see them taking over North Carolina for this game.
Hey, man, you're taking over right now. Keyon Cobb, I appreciate you spending time with us. I look forward to talking to you next Tuesday. Nobody better. Hey, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, my name is on TikTok, on Instagram. We are Key_knows_ball. So Key knows ball. I love talking about ball. I love interacting with, anybody that joins and follows. You guys come on, follow us on the socials for some short form content before we get into some of the longer form stuff. I'm excited to get back on here with you though, Pete.
Yeah, looking forward to next Tuesday. And I like you sharing the long form with us here.
For sure. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Take it easy.
All right. Cheers.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports.
We are back. We've got, I guess he's like the second coming of the Boston sports guy. Cam
Maybe.
Stewart, the Cam Show. And part of the Rogue Sports Media Network. I always get that wrong. Yeah, the Rogue. Say it up here. Is it the Rogue Media Network or the Rogue Sports?
I usually say Rogue Media Sports
Rogue
Network.
Sports Network. We have
Rogue
it on
Sports
the
Network, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, so I've been saying it wrong.
Mike Hamilton comes charging in.
Just ready to count you down when you're
geez.
done here.
Sorry, Mike. That was
The Grim
barbecue on
Reaper.
16. All right, Cam. Your first show was today.
Yeah.
First live show.
First live
You've been
show.
doing it for a while. You're headed over to Matt Mosley in a little bit to do the Mosley show. We appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Gosh, you're so local, man.
No, this is pretty cool, right? We're
good. Yeah.
sticking.
Yeah.
Yes, we're sticking.
I love it.
Locked on Baylor.
Yep.
You do a tremendous job with that. Getting ready for my game last week, I had the opportunity to dip into the fountain of Cam knowledge and
Binged Locked on Baylor.
I did. It's just
Nice.
weird. Trust me. I don't watch it. I just listen to it. All right. What are your thoughts on Baylor week one? I'm curious to see how you felt about DeQuan Finn.
Thoughts overall on Baylor? Good. When you have these like buy-in games, you're never gonna be like super impressed ever. The only things you're gonna learn are bad things, right? DeQuan Finn, I have a take that's different from a lot of Baylor fans. Fine. I thought he was fine. It did not jump off the page at me. Impress, not really, because we had high expectations for him. There was a time in that game, though, Pete, I was like, ooh. Like, those picks, 2 picks were underthrown pretty bad. One of them could have been a touchdown. Well, the other one was in the end zone, too. They both could have been touchdowns, and he should have had probably 2 more picks. One was called back on a defensive holding, and one was off a guy's hands. And so I think that's kind of what you get from him. He's going to try and thread a needle when he probably can't do that. But there were times in the game where I was like, he does not look a confident and poised passer right now. And I just wonder how much of that they get out of the system before we really get into Big 12 games. Obviously, a Big 12 opponent this weekend, non-Big 12 game. But like that's most of that performance isn't going to fly in a lot of Big 12 games. That said, it is the first game for him in a new system. It's first game for a lot of these guys in a new system. And Richard Reese after the game said they only took out about 50 to 60% of the playbook, his estimate.
Yeah.
So was it great? I didn't think so. I thought it was fine. It does leave me feeling better about the quarterback situation than I have in a few years. The first touchdown run was beautiful. That's something you have not been able to have in a long time. A guy who can get out of the pocket like that and be the fastest guy on your team. The first touchdown pass, Ashton Hawkins, that was a beautiful back shoulder throw. I've already seen it on the comments on Locked on Baylor today when I was talking about that, saying, oh, back shoulder, that's out of necessity. That's because he can't throw. I was like, no, that was a back shoulder throw.
Yeah.
And it was very good.
What is some of the scuttlebutt online? You're kind of entrenched in that through your work on Locked on Baylor. What are they saying? Not that it matters, but I'm curious.
Well, so
it does matter. I shouldn't say that.
Normally, I wouldn't get involved in the comment section, but when you're monetized on YouTube, the more comments and interaction you get, the more you're getting paid per video. So I do get involved sometimes. I think there's a lot of people drinking the Kool-Aid this weekend. DeQuan Finn, they're throwing the 2 picks just out the window. They're not. They don't even remember them. Because look at that touchdown run, and I get it. So I think people are starting to feel confident in this team. But there are the detractors of who cares? Tarleton State. Wait till they play a real team, which I also get that.
Yeah.
And that's this weekend against Utah. So that will be intriguing to see what the temperature of the room is online after that.
And just for people that are just hearing Cam for the first time, if you've been a part of this journey with us on this show, now we're going daily, but we have featured Cam a handful of times before, and he starts at like a -5. So for you to be optimistic,
yeah,
is pretty good.
Yeah, and like
we've taken you from
especially
-5
with Baylor
now
football,
to like
man.
+5.
Especially with Baylor football, which
Yeah.
I really try to not get hurt a lot of the time. Like last year, I thought I was curbing expectations, and I was thinking like 7-5, 8-4 before the season, and they vastly underperformed that.
Yeah.
And this year, I feel good at 6-6. I think it's more likely that they go 4-8 than 8-4. I see 6 as kind of a max, and I think we're going to learn a lot this weekend. Like if they lose whatever 38-10 this weekend, then yeah, I'm looking up and down the roster and saying where the wind's coming from. But yeah, I think 6-6 is a good solid bet for them.
Yeah, I think that we're going to learn a lot about the defense this weekend, and I think if the defense can
that
go
looked promising, man, big time.
and I think like you have the direction of Dave Aranda, and you got the dogs with guys like Keaton Thomas, and I really do
Jackie
think
Marshall.
Yes, Jackie Marshall.
Love Jackie Marshall.
Woo.
I have been singing his praises since Saturday night postgame.
Yeah, and you couldn't
every show I've said something about Jackie.
You literally couldn't miss him on the field unless you were my spotter, who's a friend of mine, who missed him and had number 9 instead of number 0. But that's
I was telling people
that's on me. I got to be accountable.
Watch him. Watch Jackie Marshall. Like spend a drive. Don't even really follow the play, but watch 0.
Yeah.
Because they could not live with him. They could not block him on Saturday.
What are you most excited for this season?
Golly. Most excited for. I mean, it's overall just kind of seeing if this offense will actually take shape. We've heard so much about this offense and Jake Spavital, whom I'm very high on that hire. But it's not one of those things that you just start scoring 50 points a game overnight. And so I like the skill position guys they have. I think they improved this offseason. And part of that is Dawson Pendergrass, the running back, just getting some more time. Like I feel that they have the ammo and the guy behind the gunnery to get this thing going. And I don't know that's going to take over overnight, but it's going to be there. It's this offensive line that scares me. So overall offense, I'd like to see that. That's what excites me because I think that could come around. And again, not going to be tremendous, like number 2 in the country, just like that. But if that catches on in like the first half of the season and things are really humming, like that could win them some games. They could win a 42-35 game in there in the Big 12. So that's what excites me, Pete.
All right. So I want to kill 2 birds with one stone.
Get 2 birds stoned at once. Gotcha.
I am efforting getting Matt Mosley on here to talk about the NFL. I was trying to get him to do it weekly, but he's got a high school show. Hold on. So, but I also want to talk to you about the Cowboys. So I want to ask you as Matt Mosley.
Okay.
How do you feel about the Dallas Cowboys this year? You were in Oxnard. You made the trek. I mean, it was horse and buggy operation, if you shared with people on the Doomsday podcast here on the Rogue Media Network. We've made it very clear that it was tough for you to get out there. But once you were there, what did you see from the Cowboys, and what are your expectations this year?
Pete, I tell you, they had a real nice setup out there. Ed and I pull up, and I mean the food. Jerry's around there. He's seeing some of his old pals, and I think they could make a run at this thing. I really do. They're hanging around the rim. Jerry loves that term. Doesn't really make any sense, but they're doing it. I mean, look, I get it, right? The playoffs hasn't been there, but they love winning 12 games in the regular season. They love a good 12-win season there.
Hey, Matt, what do you think about the Rogue Media Network?
Ooh, they got a lot going on that Rogue Media. Mike and Zach. Who else we got there, Cam? Pete. Oh, yeah, Pete Sousa. Pete Sousa's show. Ooh, that's a good one. He's got a podcasts there as well. They're talking sobriety. I wonder if Cam. I wonder if I could get on old Pete's podcast. Well, Matt, you haven't had a drinking problem. Well, what if I just go over the top like once a month? You think he'd have me on there? Who else we got? Josh, Matthew's pulling a lot of strings back there. Corey, of course. They got a lot going on at that Rogue Media.
As your star continues to rise, you need his to rise with you. I mean, Matt is established as it comes, especially in NFL circles. But boy, that is very, very good work. What is your like background in comedy?
Dude, it's nothing other than just being funny.
Tell me. So what was
like genuinely?
I was with you on Locked On last week, and you said something to me, and it's not like R-rated. It was a joke that you had, the Shark Tank one.
Oh, that was great. I've used it on the Cam show. So I'll put the background to it because I've talked with our pal Mike, who puts us up here, who's very funny, and we have some good banter. And I just like brought it up, and it's a feeling I have long held. I am not good at a lot of things. Okay, I'm really not. And I understand that this craft that I'm about to talk about is very difficult. But I think if I started doing stand up, I'd be pretty okay at it right away.
Oh, that is,
you know what I mean? Because like I think I'm kind of a funny guy. I'm one of my few skills is public speaking. So it's not one, I get comedy's different, but it's not one of those things I'm just going to be up there and piss my pants. And so I was workshopping with Mike some like anti stand up, like jokes where we don't even finish the joke. And I said to Mike, I was watching that show Shark Tank the other day. I couldn't believe it. It's all people.
I love that one.
There's no sharks. But they seemed happy anyway. So and just stop it at that. Like
what's another one? I stepped on that a little bit.
Okay. So I was at a grocery store the other day. Saw some frozen waffles there. Who knew?
What's the explainer with that one? I really need an explainer. So
before I came on, did my set, the guy back there asked if I wanted to warm up. And I said, oh, sure, I guess I'll just step outside.
Okay. Okay.
Is this thing on?
So I will tell you that the shark one is really good.
Yeah.
I don't get the waffles one. Can somebody tell me, like, explain the waffles one?
It's like
I'm not that smart.
There,
just
like
frozen waffles.
There. Yeah, it's like who knew?
Who knew waffles could be frozen?
Yeah, like who knew?
I don't think that's that funny.
Do you, Pete? This reminds me. Remember the chicken sandwich wars?
Oh yeah.
Never forget, man.
All right, that's good.
Am I right?
Yes. Am I right? All right. What about one more sports thing before we let you get over to?
You haven't told me I would be good at stand-up.
Well, I want to keep this a room
I think
of
I
truth.
would. I already have my first joke written out.
Okay. Do you want me to tell you right now what you need to do to be good at stand-up? I'm going to tell you right now. And if you want to be,
I'm going to take over the Waco scene.
If you want to be a successful stand-up in New York City or Los Angeles, I'm going to tell you right now what you need to do. You need to right now find a place to perform stand-up and do it once a week for all 52 weeks of the next year. And I guarantee this time next year, you will be very good at stand-up. Knowing you.
I'm moving in a couple months.
Hold on. I don't want to hear excuses. Already, see, that's what I'm talking about. And here's the point.
Well, I've been making excuses for 7 years. I've had this thought.
Here's my
stand-up.
Not making a decision is a decision, Cam. Here's the point, okay? Nobody wants to do that.
Right.
And so that is the key to being a stand-up comedian is having the courage to do that. I tried to be a stand-up comedian right after I got sober. I would go to New York City. I would go to Stand Up New York, and I would do like 5 minutes, right? It was terrifying, and I don't think it was real funny.
So, I didn't judge that.
So the two of them together were the bad combination.
Maybe it's the low self-esteem thing too. I get embarrassed not as easily.
You could do it. But I believe you could do it. You have the wit, you have the delivery, you obviously have the chops and the humor, but you have to, the ultimate exercise is doing it once a week for 52 weeks. And that doesn't come from me. That comes from a comedian who told me that. Yeah. So,
like sometimes I'm around and I'm in the air conditioning and I get really cold. And I'm thinking, what can I do when I'm so cold? And then I think I can put on a sweatshirt. This is why I'm hot.
Dude. You're definitely.
I think I really started off with like, hey, you're about to get into some wacky like stand up here and then deliver like the waffles.
That was good. Like, I'm telling
hey, how's
you.
everybody doing tonight? No, I said, how's everybody doing tonight? Really get into it at first and then just be like, yeah, frozen waffles, huh?
I'm into this.
We're going to find one.
All right.
This week.
Look, if you go do stand up, somebody from the Rogue Media Network will have to be there, or Grace, your girlfriend,
who has done it
around. Huh?
She's done it.
She has?
Yeah, just like here and there, but she's done like stand up sets. Yeah.
Do you know how hard
She's
that
big
is for
into it.
people to actually even say they've done it before?
I haven't been able to say it.
No.
I was like workshopping a whole bit about my special needs brother one time. It just didn't quite all the way get there. It was like trying to get my brother to stop taking his meds so that he would see more special needs so he could get Elton John concert tickets. It was not quite all the way there, but I had the makings of something. He's a big Elton John fan, and so am I. But it was like, how can we get the news station out there, really make him wacky and because he's more subdued, very subdued special needs. I don't know if Elton John would go for that. That was the stand-up bit that I was looking for.
One live show, and it's over for me. Was nobody paying attention last football season when I was flying too close to the sun? Here we are again.
Now that could be the makings of a great stand-up bit. You're flying too close to the sun on play-by-play.
Well, we'll talk about that.
We'll electric.
We'll talk about that sometime. All right, Cam. Patriots record. What's it going to be? Are they going to be picking number 1 in the draft next year? Yes.
Well, Carolina still might somehow be worse, but I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to say 2-15.
Better quarterback, Drake Toll or Drake May?
That's a really tough one. I'm going to give the slight edge to Drake May.
How frustrated are you with the state of affairs with New England this year? Because right now, headed into the season, and I'm asking you this because you're the Boston sports guy, part 2. It seems like they've already kind of been like, you know what, we're good. Like Coach Mayo, you go out there and say the typical regular coach speak, and you guys do that right, yeah. And you guys go out there. We're going to keep everybody alive, and we're going to go, 2-15, and then we're going to pick number 1. Do you get that feeling?
Sure. It's like that meme of the guy with the cardboard box sign that says our expectations were low, but holy fuck. Like that's what it is right now. Like I knew the Patriots are going to suck. We saw it all last year. We knew they were going to suck. We knew they probably weren't going to start the quarterback week 1 when they drafted him. But what's happened is they have just like, they can't help themselves. Like they can't put a coherent thought together. There's no plan there. They're saying, oh, well, Drake May's been better than Jacoby Brissett, but Jacoby Brissett's going to start, even though it was open quarterback competition. And, oh, now I don't want Drake May to be nipping at the heels of our starter, Jacoby Brissett. It's like, why the fuck not? So it's like they don't have a plan. Again, the expectations were low, but they can't even formulate a plan. They have not been able to put a team around a quarterback the last 5 years so that when they do bottom out and draft a guy 3rd overall, they can't even put him out there because they don't have a team. They haven't put enough of anything out there to keep the kids safe. So yeah, I think it's really bad.
Cam Stewart.
And that's the thing with the Patriots. It's like, they call them the Pats, but when you spell it out, it's the Patriots. Shouldn't it be the Pates?
Cam Stewart tomorrow. What time we going live tomorrow? 11 a.m.
11 a.m.
Central Time.
Yeah, baby. That's high noon for my East Coasters.
Great job, Cam.
Thanks.
Great job, Zach Burke, Mike Hamilton. Thrilled to be with you guys. We will be back tomorrow at 1 Central Time, 2 Eastern. Until then, stay safe.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports.
We are Rogue Media Sports.